So I have got head rock star, physiotherapist and performing arts medicine specialist Anna Achimowicz with me tonight. How are you, Anna? This is a funny one for me because I'm used to having bands on this show and all these different things, but you are an anomaly when it comes to the amount of things. I mean, I've got a quote. I'm going to quote this: rock star physiotherapy, so complex and so needed in today's day and age of performing. Anna's approach is revolutionary, quoted from the Bass Musician magazine. You're so multi-talented, Anna. We're here to know more about you. Tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
God bless you, Dan, for this introduction. I mean, I don't need to say anything. You said it all. Good
that's
night,
it.
folks.
Finished.
Thank
Bye.
you very much for having me. Yeah, well, I like to do a lot of stuff, and I'm passionate about it. And essentially, I've been establishing myself as, well, like you mentioned, you were expecting a band, but I'm literally like a one-woman band. You know, artistic director, medical professional, you know, artist, creator, what have you, ever since I was 6. I mean, medical profession came a little bit later, but funny enough, I did start very early on. Age 6, ADHD, my mom looking for a way to kind of stream my creativity and stream my, you know, overloading element of energy that I had growing up in San Diego, California, just kind of bouncing around casinos and just hanging out with my parents, my dad doing scientific research and conferences. So I remember like rolling around in Reno somewhere at the Marriott Hotel or Hyatt it was, I don't know which one. And, you know, just pretty much putting up a show, getting attention, enjoying the crowd, enjoying just, you know, walking out at an early age. And of course, like the body language of expression has been the first language. I started my career as a modern jazz dancer, if you will. I started my education in musical. So that's like a super long stretch, you know, 3 decades in. I'm celebrating a 23rd anniversary right now of my artistic, you know, career, essentially, putting on stage shows, of my own direction, choreography, stage setup, you know, music, fashion, the whole shebang. Mm-hmm. Ever since I was 11, that was my first stage debut. But, like I say, out of musical, I cracked very much to the other darker alternative side, if you will, of things, because I was always kind of fascinated with, well, let's say more profound, more dark, more weird, more off, you know, not the mainstream, definitely not musical pop or, you know, the funny side of things. Funny enough, if you or your listeners are at all aware about Japanese Buto dance, that was my first monodram solo, you know, post-apocalyptic, you know, nuclear bomb about death. And that was my monodram solo, you know, about a creature from the swamps. So that kind of started early on. It was called Lost. And then not Lust, that's fun too, but Lost, question mark. And, you know, I was half naked, smeared in white paint. My friend was pouring a bucket of water over me right before, I went on stage from the backstage. It was like a high school theater festival, I believe. And, you know, first shows essentially across the board of all stage festivals. And one element across the board that was always strong to my image, if you will, to something that's very characteristic of me, was always this element of metamorphosis and fusion of multiple things. That's why you mentioned Rock Dance Theater and Rebel Crush and even Rock and Physio. I fused so many elements that were always like passionate and close to my heart, because I love, you know, heavy, loud guitar and bass driven music. I love metal. I'm a metal girl. I love rock and roll. I've been working a lot with world music back in the day across, you know, my teenage years and my very first shows, as a solo artist. But also I love fashion and I love body work and all sorts of, you know, angles approaching stage lighting and, you know, fashion as an extension of your character and of the show. So it's just, you know, years on, kind of everything connected. And right now I laugh that I'm kind of trying to establish this yin and yang balance between my rock metal world, artistic world, and my medicine, because it's all kind of fused together. But medicine keeps me in a space that, I mean, still, if your listeners saw us on camera right now, I'm literally, you know, dressed up like a rocker, but I'm a medical professional. I'm a licensed physiotherapist. I'm a jerkinesis trainer, an MCMT licensed therapist. So I've been to universities and I've gotten my degrees, but at the same time, I'm a physio that dresses like no other, understands the body and the human connections like no other. And hell, like us as rockers and musicians and performers are a weird breed. We are a different breed, and what we do is extreme highly athletic sports, essentially, which requires, like you gracefully mentioned that before in the intro, that the approach requires, finesse and really understanding what the heck is going on, because it's not so easy and not so simple, like straight, direct to the eyes and to the ears, as you would imagine. So that's why I decided to develop this niche, and hell, it kind of profits for me.
Well, I was going to say, because I know that when I used to play drums live, and I'm even doing it now, talking to this microphone, my posture was terrible. I used to get the guys at the side of the stage to tell me to sit up, because I'd see pictures of me after gigs, and I'd see me just like hunched over the kit like some kind of like ape. I was like, what am I doing? Just straighten my back up. So, musicians do, they completely and utterly wreck and ruin their bodies with this stage performance.
They do. Don't worry. So do dancers, dancers, sports people, marathon runners.
Of course they do. But you found
it's awareness element.
You saw this niche, and you're running with it with this rockstar physiotherapy. What made you see this opportunity, and what you're doing with it now? Because I see you've been out with some bands, and you take it out on the road, and you're talking to musicians. You've got these workshops. Tell me more about it.
Yeah. So essentially, when I was on the brink of kind of choosing my first studies and degree, I essentially started alongside of my career mingling with people at international festivals for theater and performance and music and fashion with people that were also body workers, funny enough. Some of them were chiros, some of them were physios or massage therapists, trainers of all sorts from across the globe back in late 90s, early 2000s. And I started getting my education very early on, learning on my own body how to essentially be injury-free, how to have body awareness, how to have proper tools, proper understanding, especially the connections, how everything works. Because it doesn't fall just into the technique. It really requires you understanding in the very, very specific field what kind of body mechanics are behind it. Exactly like you say, if you're a drummer, you tend to sort of bang the hell out of your instrument in a certain posture way, but is it necessarily the one that is most effective, the most injury-free? No, that you really need to learn. And well, I'm still learning almost 16 years into my medical practice, but the first thing that I started understanding is that the body is a spiral, just as if you would imagine round strings on a stringed instrument. I'm a bass player. I started playing guitar. I started with that, and now the bass has kind of taken over. But if you understand the connections in the body, is how I explain it to rockers, to musicians, to people in the arts. I always try to compare to their main working tool. Okay, if it's an athlete, of course, is their main body, but then again, you kind of analyze, okay, running, you have these and these elements. Okay, the surface, the shoes, accessories, climate, stuff like that. With the occupational hazard, as we call it in medicine, for musicians, it's, for example, their instrument, but we need to take a step back. And the main instrument, number one, is our body. And we have only one. There are no extra parts, even if we 3D print them right now. But essentially, this kind of need for understanding to dig deeper and not necessarily trusting only an A to B way of doing things. Because quite honestly, across my education and also my physiotherapy university studies, a lot of alternative methods have overlapped and came into that. And what I understand through that is not only kind of a holistic chiropractic approach from the United States, but a lot of Heilpraktikum, so-called from Germany and Austria, which I spent 16 years in and out being an assistant at Praxis Römerstrasse, along with my good, great, and long lasting friend and mentor, Johannes Randolph, who developed the narrow cranial mobilizations technique that I'm also a licensed representative of. It's essentially a fusion. Like, I love the word fusion. So it encompasses the best techniques of osteopathy, which is a lot of working on joints and bones themselves, a lot of soft approach of muscle testing, which is applied kinesiology, and also super fine tuning, which is working on the skull, on the cervical spine, and on the pelvis, which is my absolute true love. It's my main center of competence. But saying that, everything derives around it in the sense of everything attaches to that in a musician. So let's say if you have a tennis elbow, so to speak, or lumbar pain from hunching over, sitting on the drum kit, it has nothing to do with the drum kit or your bad posture to begin with. That's one of the stereotypes that learned early on, developing my performing arts medicine for dancers to start with, because the huge misconception for dancers, for example, is that if the body is super flexible and super mobile, the range of motion is huge, they also have deep core stability and symmetry and elements that are supposed to kind of work for themselves. Nothing less untrue. I mean, I swear to God, in my whole career, I would probably see one dancer. I kid you not. I've had thousands of people go through my hands, and I'm looking forward to all of the thousands that will be in my hands and in my tools too. But I had only one dancer that had a symmetrical pelvis, in the sense of a functional deviation in the body that causes a chain reaction and things to spiral out of control, for the nerve system to wire, to hijack, so to speak, and everything else is a chain reaction that manifests as pain. So like you said, working with bands right now, as I take it on the road, number one of my approaches that is quite unique and I'm very proud of is I do not work with a table. I hardly ever put the person on lying down, because in early understanding, it doesn't matter that it doesn't hurt or it doesn't manifest when you have zero gravity and lying. If you put the person back up into any kind of their natural environment and function, it all recreates. It all starts to manifest again. So I laugh that I'm a self-spoken, kind of self-called Dr. House in physiotherapy and in rock and in metal. And that's where I love to be, because I dig deep into the cause always. And that's essentially 90, if not more, % of success when managing somebody's body, when managing somebody's pain. And I have to tell you, there's nothing more gratifying and satisfying in my field of work, not only as an artist, being a teacher and a coach to young performers and teaching workshops and, let's say, body management courses that I have in the series in my practice, but there's nothing more gratifying than explaining the main chain reaction, and all of a sudden, the gates open and you see the glimmer in the eyes, like, oh my fucking God. That's why my knee hurts all the time. I had a twisted pelvis, or I was dehydrated, simple elemental, like, functional stuff that we start to begin with. And then we establish, an individual protocol, whoever I work with, be it advanced bands and legacy artists, which is the most fun, of course, because it challenges me a lot to dig deep into my techniques and connections and my knowledge and figuring out what works best and how to kind of crack the case, if you will. But at the same time, guiding young artists, guiding young musicians, dancers, performers to start the way that I started, which is great coaching, great technique, and really the proper tools that essentially I can say that I was really lucky and blessed to not have very severe injuries along the line. I mean, I'm not saying wear and tear, a cracked rib here and there, or a subluxated ankle, because my style of performance requires a very extreme way of bending and contorting and kind of, working with gravity and a gaze. But we're working with the young guys, with the young fellows that are kind of the next generations up and coming behind us right now. It's just so satisfying to teach them the right way and clear up the misconceptions and the matrix, if you will, because there's a lot of stuff that build up that is just misinformation from the 70s, from the 80s, that are still present in habits, with artists. So, and I love tearing that down. I love it.
It's humbling. But I mean, how many people, these are musicians these days, are turning to experts like yourselves? I mean, people are becoming more health conscious and not doing the things, say, musicians were doing many, many years ago. It's a changing world. And for example, if someone's listening now, do they have to see you in person, or is it something that you can do and talk from afar like we are now?
Well, luckily, COVID has provided us, I don't know if we can say the C word right now. No, radio is completely off the hook. The pandemic has actually shown us how much professionals like me can outreach and also develop kind of my practice in the way of remote, because I'm only one person. Of course, I would love all of the possible artists and bands, from Kiss through a kid that is 7-year-old just picking up his first guitar or drum kit, to hit me up first, because I know I can direct them and I trust my experience and just what I've been through as an artist myself that I can bring to the table, because it's a rare mix that I'm a medical professional and practicing artist as well. Usually you have one or two, someone that is just, let's say, a trainer, a coach. But the essence of the thing is that very much so, a lot of it is talking, explaining, discussing, and kind of showing how everything works. So let's say if even right now, after we finish this interview, I have a client that comes over in person, and of course I do my magic and I take my tools for adjustment, and it's called the Anna activation method, which I actually kind of established and named officially last year, and it's somewhere bleed into the media. A couple of articles picked it up, a couple of metal portals, if you will, picked it up. So I'm grateful for that. But very much so, a huge part of it is just educating and spreading awareness and knowledge and explaining. Even if it's on Zoom through like that, my practice also offers that. So literally we call in like that. People across the world can hook me up, can look me up online and just call in and discuss any kind of problem that is connected to their health. And you would be surprised what a wide spectrum of, well, maybe not complaints, because that's a kind of a negative word, but a wide spectrum of challenges that musicians face, starting from insomnia, and as we know, all the way through substance abuse, mental health, which is funny enough, a huge element that is still stigmatized. And in my practice, I use this kind of pyramid Dreieck approach, which is structure, biochemistry, and the mental side, the psychosomatic. And there's a huge increase nowadays of symptomatic onsets of a painful shoulder or a migraine or food intolerance that is triggered purely by stress, by, the living situation, a heart breakup, figuring out to find a deal for your record, or to find a label, all sorts of things that are kind of ground zero, basic, needs and elements that others go through with their career and trying to make money and all of that. But in a biological sense, it overloads the nerve system hugely. So my work essentially is based a lot about stimulating the nerve system in a proper way, but also finding one of the 8 elements, because I have like a checklist, let's say. So one would be biochemistry. Okay, you lack something in your nutrition that is connected to your organ, to your L5 lumbar segment, to your temporal bone in your skull, and everything else. So to that extent, it's that fun and complex as a kind of like a puzzle, jigsaw puzzle. But a lot of it can be done, like you asked in your primary question, remotely. But of course, the magic happens when I have someone in my hands, and I do my testing, I do the challenges on the body. If a guitar player has a guitar, we strip that on. I test him in his natural, I don't want to say position, but in his natural function, so to speak. And that changes everything, because if you find clinical findings, as we call it, in the moment and in the right timing, when something so-called subluxate doesn't function well, high wires, that's exactly the moment I should catch it and exactly the moment I should correct it. Not when the person is lying down and is pain-free. And, well, if we were an elemental being, such as, one-cell organism, we would be probably crippling and crawling on the floor without much gravity or resistance, but we're not. Evolution has provided us to, rock out and do pyro shows such as, our favorite bands do. So that's one of the elements that, be it remote or in person, that I approach completely differently to what medicine traditionally has to offer.
Now, not only the dance and the medicine side, you play guitar, you learned bass, I think only a few years ago, self-taught. And did you, when you first pulled that, bass on, how heavy it is, and you're thinking about posture and all that, did you do it from a I want to thrash out kind of mentality, which I'm sure you did, but at the same time, your medical brain's ticking over going, how can I hold this so well that I'm not going to get this tweak here and I can help other people here? Was that going through your mind when you first picked up the bass?
Well, it's funny, because with bass, it was a complete natural marriage in heaven.
Because those things are heavy, man. They're the heavy thing, the heaviest things. They are.
I mean, I have a bass a couple of meters. If we were on camera, I would show it to you and to everybody in the interview. But what I started creating and writing the most is a semi-hollow vintage 1974 Yolana Iris,
right. Okay.
which is a semi-hollow. It has literally F shapes So it's almost, weightless to me.
Yeah.
It's a 3/4 scale for my relatively, as my partner laughs at me, small female hands for a bass player. But I pull it off. It's about the technique and the proper, moves. But funny, no, I have completely zero analysis in the sense that I kind of detach that and look at it as a just another patient or client that I would analyze. I've been a performer ever since I was a child. So this element of body awareness and natural biomechanics and proper, I want to scratch the word proper posture because that's a 70s word. I mean, there's nothing bad with the word in the dictionary, but for our understanding and for your audience to profit from it most, the way that I can explain it best is movement mechanism. Maybe I just took that up straight off the top of my head. Proper movement mechanisms that me as a contemporary dancer across the years made me develop just reflexes that are beyond me awarely. It is just so ingrained and so natural that I can auto-correct myself. I can auto-regulate myself. I know where's the limits of strain. I know where I'm already overheating a certain ligament or it's just, it's a judgment call at the moment. Do I push it further than knowing that I'll be sore the next day? Or is it the element of still this good pain, developing my technique, my strength, my agility and all that? And it comes down to pretty much everything that I do. I mean, with bass, it's not necessarily the mainstream instrument, but if you look at, all of our favorite bass players, that shall remain nameless, whereas, in metal or rock and roll or in jazz, those guys, they just love what they do. It's not a mainstream instrument, but if you take away the bass, essentially the song doesn't exist.
Yeah.
For me personally, as Anna Achimowicz, the core with the drums, you're a drummer, you know exactly. I mean, being in the pocket, sitting, especially, either behind or a little bit in front. If you guys are not there or girls, like the guitar is awesome as a shredding instrument, solo and as a show up. We love that, right? But at the same time, it's kind of, good luck to you. I mean, how long can you sustain your tremolo and vibrato?
Yeah.
There has to be this intricate kind of fusion of all of it. So, as a show off, well, probably so. I mean, if I hang upside down in my choreography, let's say in Strings and Veins in one of my 2016 stage pieces, upside down, hanging by a guitar neck. Now it's a little bit more challenging if I have to balance with that with the bass because the weight is distributed differently. Yeah. So very much so, self-taught, hitting the studio to rehearse and even here in my home studio where I'm calling in for this interview with you, Dan. It was funny to discover, oh, holy hell, I need to wear different shoes for this and, all sorts of experimentation like that. So, it's a fun ride and a fun journey to kind of discover that because the body language that I developed also in Rock Dance Theater or in just Anna Achimowicz stage experience or in Rebel Crush, that is the more metal kind of sophisticated, side of me. It's all kind of self-explanatory, but also filled with so many different techniques and approaches that I learned from all sorts of folks that at this point, answering your question, it's like, no, I don't think about, technique in the sense of, analysis like a scientist under the lab. That most definitely I turn into when I speak to you when I'm Dr. House. So, and there's no stopping to me. It's just, I don't shut up. But luckily I do adjust and correct and do the body work while I talk. So it's like, a double hitter.
So for those musicians who are listening now, what advice can you give them for pre-show, post-show, days leading up to a tour, that are a long way away? I mean, where do they start? Where do they start? Is it just a
call
case
me. Just call me. I mean, if you're Kiss or what have you, just call me and I'll tell you where to start.
I thought it was a magical cure. I thought you could just say something that would just hey guys, just start by playing with your guitar with your back to the wall to get you. I mean, I've noticed the last half an hour. I'm sat more straight talking to you.
You know what? Check your pelvis. Your pelvis is not straight. Start there, and I'll see you at the finish line. How about that?
How do you check your pelvis?
Well, essentially, we don't feel that your pelvis is asymmetrical. That's kind of the funny side of nature that gave it to us. And none of us scientists really know. There are theories that somehow along the evolution, we're either one-sided as a single cell organism that we tend to kind of rotate in our mother's womb to one side, kind of twist and spiral and rotate. But then if we go out at birth, we already are immediately thrown into this programming educational matrix of right or left, dominant or, passive, which kind of on a neurological side makes sense. But at the same time, it's a question always, egg or chicken. But the funny thing with the pelvis is that you have to find someone that is equipped and knowledgeable to check that, because it's a functional lesion. And funny enough, it's not something that causes the skeleton to be underdeveloped or developed in the way that you see on an X-ray, that the right side and the left is just different. It's not two sides reflecting each other. So not even that examination would show it, because that's passive. If we were looking for fractures or, wear and tear in orthopedics, that really the cause would be something connected to the skeletal system, you would need to go down that route. The funny thing is, in my work, in my practice, most of the time, and I say that with full, security, most of the time, problems that musicians face are functional, which means your painful knee is not the knee itself as the cause.
Right.
The painful elbow, the cervical, all of that, because the very initial element that so-called goes out of alignment or out of balance can be anything. And by that, we understand something that triggers a chain reaction, and it might take a week to develop into something that is, painful, uncomfortable, or just kind of affects your technique or playing. But, if you ask me, let's just agree that you need to look somewhere where it doesn't hurt if you do have a health challenge, and then you kind of
take it from there.
You kind of go from there. It's a loaded question. I'm sorry.
That's cool. It's cool.
To that.
We've got about 10 minutes. I know we're short on time, so I just want to get this couple of things. You've announced today about your performance mentorship program, which I'm interested in. What's that? Who's it for, and what's it about, and what can people gain from it?
Sure. So, like you mentioned, the one-on-one performance mentoring is a very special program for one-on-one students. It's an extension of my workshops that I've been teaching, which is one of the workshop is an extensive bodywork, stage action, go with the flow kind of thing, which covers essentially all techniques that either established artist or an amateur would need, which is a lot of technique about working with the body, how to fall from the floor, how to work with the camera, how to have awareness with your breathing. What does it mean to actually build a stage character, be a stage performer, how to work in music videos and appearances. So it's a very widespread of kind of like a compendium of my 23 years of stage experience that I kind of jam pack into a couple of hours of one-on-one sessions. And the whole idea is essentially to take the artist and under the microscope and look for their own engraved talents, to see at the challenges where we can still kind of stretch their natural character, their natural goods and elements that they already have established, and lift them even higher in their technique or level of depth, if you will, and especially the places that they're completely unaware of, which is, the vast majority. At the same time, it's bringing out their stage presence and giving them tools that they, like you said before, where do I start? So we go a lot through warm up. We do a lot of just awareness as an artist, building character versus you, the private person, working with the space, working with environment, going through a technical writer if you need that as well. So building essentially everything around like a live stage performer in a tablet, awesome. Which is this size.
Awesome. So with that happening as well, what else is happening in 2023? What's on the horizon for you?
Well, I'm very looking forward because that's literally at my head right now, and I'm just starting to pack for my trip to Sweden because I'm continuing the body management for metal bass players clinic promotional tour, which is a small kind of like a meet and greet and opportunity to book individual sessions with me as well and have a glimpse of the full seminar because the clinic itself is around 5-ish, 6 hours,
right.
Both theory and practice. So a lot of kind of medicine, but in a fun metal spoon-fed way to the players. So I'm going to be in Sweden for a couple of days. I'm also going to be at Club Proxima on the 1st of February. So that's where that kicks off for 2023. I just did a bunch of dates last year, just literally wrapping up December. It accelerated quite a bit. So that was a great time to visit a couple of cities, Krakow, Wrocław, Poznań, Warsaw. Don't remember what else because it's already 2023. And of course, at the same time, I'm constantly working on Rebel Crush and Rock Dance Theater material. Rock Dance Theater is extending the Return of Phoenix, the Rise of Phoenix tour this year, which is going to be the Anna Achimowicz and guests, hitting a couple of cities that will be announced soon. And I can already say it. Some stuff is going to be happening on stage in Sweden. Some is going to be happening down the line in Germany, in Europe. And, everything else is always kind of in the pipelines. I'm always working on a ton of things that I don't announce until literally, hey, I'm appearing there tomorrow. And, day by day, literally rolling into new year without any stress, learning songs, writing lyrics. I wrote a ton over the Christmas period, actually. Brilliant. I was just like banging out stuff and, writing articles that you can probably find soon as a next edition at Bass Musicians Magazine, which I'm a contributing author right now. So it's also a great platform to get some science mingled into music and get the awareness spread. So, a ton of things that I probably don't even know that is around the corner or in my email. So that's awesome. The most exciting.
Yeah, of course. And where can people find you?
If you Google the main Anna Achimowicz official website, it's going to feed you to the right place because there is only one. We recently launched the main kind of all things official Anna Achimowicz website. But of course, for music, Band-Aid and physiotherapy for rockstars, there's the official website and the same handle, Performing Arts Medicine on Facebook, on Instagram, all of the social medias. Rock Dance Theater also only one. If you Google that, all social medias and also the main websites. And Rebel Crush, kind of same thing. I think that link is on a link TREE, that kind of thing. And that directs you to YouTubes and to classes booking and appearances and all the good stuff. Awesome. And we also have merch.
Of course, so, check all that out. I'll be putting the links everywhere as well. That's awesome. Anna, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else is going to be on your horizon, what many other strings you can add to your already very full bow.
Well, I'm probably going to add a 5th string to my bass because for now I'm a 4-string gal, but I think it's time to upgrade and get like a Jackson 5. So we'll see about that. I called Santa about it. He said the shipment is delayed, so could be that.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. It was a pleasure.